Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and our most honored guest. Thank you for being here today. In your mind, think for a moment, what is Mr. Donald Trump worth? How about Bill Gates? If Vincent van Gogh was alive today and his art was selling for the amount that it actually sells for today, what would he be worth? What are you worth? If you took all your entire retirement, pensions, insurances, added them all together, sold your home, put in your savings, what would you be worth? Well, I can tell you something. That is not how I value you. That dollar figure means nothing. And I'm going to tell you why. Most of you know me well enough to know that everything that I do, think, or say, I want to contribute it to what the Lord has done for me. And that's where I find my real value. But I'm not going to go along those spiritual lines today. I'm going to go on human lines, what anyone can think about and do. There are a group of friends and relatives that I have, sad to say, that are in prison in Iowa. The only reason that I know these people, even my nephew, is because of my son. And my son is a pretty good judge of character. So when he says, "Mom, this man's really got a good heart. Can you write to him once in a while?" Or, "Mom, Sabra doesn't have anybody to come see her. Can you take yourself off my visiting list, be on hers for a while, make some visits, make some contact, and then you can trade back to mine?" That means something to me. He puts value on them. There is a man named Larry Boring who happens to be up in Anamosa, who, amazingly, my son put his arm around him and said, "You're my friend." The reason this is amazing to me is because Mr. Boring was accused of child molesting. And if you don't know very much about prison, I'll tell you, child molesters are the lowest of lows. Everyone else has the respect of being given a nickname, so that you're not using their real name, but you're using a nickname. Mr. Boring has no nickname because he is the lowest of the lows. Now, because my son put his arm around me and told me, "Mom, I really think he is innocent. I do not believe he is guilty of what they said he did. I really believe he meant to give of his caring heart to a child in need, and it was misunderstood and taken out of context and blown into a big deal and found by the courts to be guilty." Because my son is such a good judge of character, maybe not the best decision maker, but I believe him. So when he asked me to be in contact with Mr. Boring, I did. Before I knew it, I started receiving artwork from Mr. Boring. Now, not all of this is made by him. Those other work items, some of the things that I still have at home that I didn't bring with me, are made by other inmates. And they all call me Mama T-Rose because my son knows I like my privacy and I don't want to be known as Teresa. Mr. Boring, as other prisoners have been stripped of honor and dignity. Not only from their own minds, their own self-talk, but also by other inmates, and sadly to say, some guards. To them, you are not worth a piece of, well, let's put it this way, a dime maybe? You don't have any value. They will lie to you. They will tell you you're never going home. No one ever loves you. You're not going to have any visitors. And even if you do go home, you're going to be back. I just know it. They don't add any value to their lives that way. Now, I'm not saying everybody is that way, but that's the majority of things that happen. Mr. Boring happened to be, I don't know whether you actually term him manic depressive, but he dealt a lot with depression before he went in. That has become even worse. So when he's in his depressed states, he's on suicide watch. But when he is up, I have been told by other people that I communicate with that he is one of the most caring, one of the most giving, one of the most loving human beings that they have ever met inside prison walls. The thing that I appreciate is his communication with me, that because I told him, you have a skill, you have talent, you need to keep going and keep improving and keep developing. Because when you get out, there'll be a market for this. It added value to his well-being. Now, as I told Pat a few moments ago, I tend to cringe when I get told I have another big package coming in the mail. I do not own a museum. My house is not big enough to display everything. This is not all of it. But just as you have done for me, I urge you to do for others. When I first became a Nexus member, I had some issues. Am I done with them? No, I know that. But you became my friends. You gave me words of encouragement, words of wisdom, words of strength. I remember comments of, you have skill, you have talents. You can achieve anything you set out to do. Do you know how much that meant to me? That's all I did for Mr. Boring and a few others that I have known. Am I urging you to become a prison pen pal and develop deep friendships with someone? No. If you feel so led, yes, do it. Keep your privacy, but do it. But there are other people in our lives that are imprisoned. Take Ashley, that works at DNR. She's one of our interns. There's 800 people on those 2 floors. Another 500 out in the field, at least. When you look at her and ask her, how many friends do you have here? Oh, I have lots of friends. But she will take someone who just smiles at her and says, hi, Ashley, and goes on as a true friend. In a wheelchair, there's very few people that actually stoop down low enough to look you in the eye, talk to you, and get to know you. You have elderly people, such as my mother, who, even though she's still living in her apartment, is frail enough she doesn't get out, except when I take her to the doctor. Then you have people in long care term facilities, people in assisted living. You have people who are imprisoned. The reason I was asking James how tall he was, and was it 6'4", is because at work, the lady who does our maintenance work, our cleaning of the trash cans, I kind of sort of measured her today when she walked by a cubicle, and then I went up after she left and stood up. My top of my head is 3 inches below her armpit. She is tall. She is in a prison of her own, and you can tell it by the way she carries her body and the way she speaks. There are people in prisons all over that we meet with all the time. And I implore you to do for them what you have done for me. You are worth a whole lot more to me than you will ever know.
Of course. Thank you, Teresa. And now, before I read any of the introduction, I'll ask James to give the objectives of Linda's speech today.
Toastmaster, most welcome guests, fellow Toastmasters. These are the objectives for Linda's speech. Project number 4, a dramatic talk in the Advanced Communication Series Manual, The Entertaining Speaker. Develop an entertaining dramatic talk about an experience or incident. Include vivid imagery, characters, and dialogue. Deliver the talk in an entertaining manner. Instead of 5 to 7 minutes, Madam Timer, she is requesting 8 to 10. Mr. Toastmaster.
Linda absolutely loves being a member of Toastmasters. She's semi-retired and has 5 grandchildren ranging in age from 10 up to 23. She loves to paint and write. Today she will be speaking to us, as James said, on a dramatic talk. The title is A Look Track. A Look Back. I'm sorry, A Look Back. In parentheses, Father's Day. Please help me welcome Linda Northhouse.
Fellow Toastmasters, Mr. Toastmaster, and our guest. This is in honor of Father's Day, and it's a look back. The coat. Strange to say, it really didn't have an odor. The brown, rough, wool trench coat, splattered with rust-colored substance, hung quietly on the hook. Parts of the frayed cuffs and sleeves were stiff and hung straight and rigid like the soldier that once wore it. The workroom in which the coat hung smelled of grease and metal. Black fingerprints from a large man covered the wooden door and the workbench. One light bulb swayed gently from the ceiling, casting ominous, moving shadows on the gray cement walls. A dusty lamp of sorts, minus a shade, took up residence on that bench. This was a scary place for a child, but this was a refuge for the man who worked there. My father did not hunt or fish like other fathers did. He didn't really have any leisure hobbies that I could tell, except maybe for football. Oh, he loved to watch football. I have been told, though, that he did hunt and fish some when he was a boy on the farm. He was a child living through the Great Depression and grew up on a southern Iowa farm. Rolling hills and dirt roads that turned to mud in the spring, and large trees fit for climbing graced the area around the 2-story clapboard farmhouse that he had lived in. My memories of the farm were fun. A place to run and climb and swing and discover. This was a great place for a kid to visit. My father's memories, however, were quite different. He knew what it was like to plow a field with a team of large farm horses at the age of 9. He knew how to take care of the farm chores that my grandfather gave him. Dad learned from the farm that he could fix anything. He was a conservative man with his money and his time. And he firmly believed that if a person made it, a person could fix it. Dad reminded us often to use our heads and think. My father's curiosity and intellect were never satisfied. He was a lifelong learner, always interested in what made nature, people, and things work. He took his responsibilities as he saw them very seriously. Duty above all, I think, sums up his outlook. His deep commitment to family and country were the framework that surrounded his life. Not that he did not smile or laugh, because he did, but work was primary. He had an acerbic wit about him, and the absurdities of his life, and probably others, rarely escaped him. He was, after all, a good provider. That was his duty to his family. He grew up in a time, at least for him, that a measure of a man was in his ability to provide for his family. He truly believed in raising his children to think for themselves and to eventually take care of themselves. Love to my father was shown in action, such as teaching multiplication tables. Love was abstract and certainly not to be expressed in words. The man I knew did have spiritual quality about him and a detectable reverence about him, but he professed no religion. I guess to some he failed us miserably in not instilling a certain and sure way of dealing with the matters of God. Grandma, however, made sure that as a child I would have regular Christian doses with our summer visits to the farm. We had vacation Bible school all the time with Grandma, and thank goodness for that. Thank God for that. My father went to war in his 20s. He completed his Bachelor of Science degree and was in medical school when he enlisted. His country needed him, and this was his duty. Dad was a medic and used his fixed attitude and medical training, limited as it was, on the battlefield. Medic needed over here. My father never spoke of those Army days until the last years of his life. I think he wanted us to know what events and what experiences shaped him. He wanted us to look through his window and maybe see a little reflection in our own. He witnessed, as so many young soldiers did, the insanity of war, the killing and maiming. Dad was in Europe. He was in Germany and Poland when emaciated survivors were freed from Hitler's concentration camps. He was a farm boy from Iowa who saw a parade and the effects of the Blitz in London. He saw devastation from bombs and from mortar. He saw hot summers and cold winters, patching up soldiers enough to hand them over to doctors. He saw broken lives. He knew of death, and he also knew of miracles. He harbored no fear of death, at least this is what he told me, after witnessing so much. His own death bore the passing of a man, much like a mother giving birth. He gave in to the unknown. That coat, caked with blood and memories, hung as a silent testament and served a purpose for that man. The code carried stories that would not, nor could not, be expressed in words. Only muted sounds of war and now shadows emanated from this cloth. Dad never went back to medicine except for the occasional family emergency. He instead became a builder and a contractor. He appreciated beauty that he could create and in his ability to provide for his family. His quiet partner in the workroom was his reminder of another time and place where hopes and dreams were left behind and put on hold a bit. And no matter how old you get, you will always miss your dad. Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Topics. We've got a few minutes here. Why don't we do a few of these, if nothing else, just to give Kirsten an idea of our complete meeting, what we normally do here. Maureen, could we get a reset on the lights there?
Mr. Toastmaster, I believe that Kirsten has volunteered to participate in
Teresa.
These are all fun.
But
These are all
not be
fun and
called
short.
on the first time, please.
Okay, maybe we'll give you the last one.
Oh.
No, I've done that one before. Here's Johnny. Johnny Carson began his television career as a writer for Red Skelton. When he hosted his first episode of The Tonight Show, his guests included Tony Bennett, Mel Brooks, and Joan Crawford. Carson retired from the show on May 22, 1992, after an unprecedented 30-year run. Fern, if you were a talk show host, who would you choose as the guest for your first show? Guest or guests for your first show?
Mr. Table Topics Chairman, honored guest, fellow Toastmasters. Who would I choose as my talk show host, first guest? It was not specified whether they were some immediate people you knew in your immediate vicinity or someone who is well known and famous, whatever that is. I think for my first talk show host, someone I can talk with very well, would be I'm just thinking of my mother. She was delightful. She had a sense of humor, and she was very she did not ever want to put herself forward, but she did have a keen sense of people, what they were like, and she was able to talk and enjoy it. And then another person who would be a good guest would be Mahatma Gandhi. We could bring him back to do the talking. I think he and my mother would have a very interesting conversation. And then another person would be the President of the United States. So we could have him expound what he was them all over, and we might get some answers because she'd be able to get them. She always could from us kids.
With the possible exception of the spiny anteater, all mammals sleep. And who wants to be an anteater? The average human infant sleeps 16 to 18 hours a day. The average adult sleeps 7 to 8 hours a day, or about 1/3 of every day. Roseanne, how would your life be different if you didn't have to sleep?
Mr. Table Topics Chair, our guests, fellow Toastmasters, how would my life be different if I did not have to sleep? I really enjoy sleeping. I have what they call a sleep number bed. You've probably heard of them, and maybe some of you have them. I got one several years ago, and then we just had a newer one recently. And sleeping is one of my joys at night, to go to bed and get into the bed. This feels so good. But if I could not sleep, I would probably do a little bit more reading. I'm going to guess that even though I couldn't sleep, it's still going to get dark out. So I think at that point in time, I would probably read. I would do a little bit more on my computer, maybe play out a little bit more Words for Friends, I don't know. I don't think I would go out anywhere because when I get home, I stay home usually. But reading and maybe learning would be something that I would probably do with that extra time. Mr. Table Topics Master.
I think even if we're not sleeping, we still need that break. While hunting with friends, Sir Hugh Beaver wondered which game bird was fastest. No one knew, so Beaver asked London statisticians to compile a book of such records. The result was the Guinness Book of World Records, first published in 1955. Today it includes records for feats like pogo stick jumping, which by the way is 177,737 times. Pat, considering your abilities, how could you get into the Guinness Book of World Records?
Mr. Topics Master, I am in the Guinness Book of Records. You haven't seen it there. It's not something that I brag about. I really don't. In fact, had someone not mentioned that I should do this certain thing, I would have never gone after it. But, you know, when you talked about that pogo stick, it sure brought memories back when I was a kid. The pogo stick was taller than I was, and I remember this big orange ball on the top of it. All right, that's so if you hit it, it would take all your teeth out. But I jump and jump and jump, and then I think, well, how do I finally get off this thing? You know, it's hard enough just to get going, but then to, you know, get off of it, you just have to kind of come to an absolute stop and then just kind of fall. Now that's not why I'm in Guinness Book of Records. I will go to my grave holding that secret. I will never divulge what it is.
I could probably get in for stand licking or something. When he wasn't busy psychoanalyzing patients, Sigmund Freud enjoyed collecting mushrooms. Author Lillian Hellman loved to fish. Richard Nixon enjoyed a good game of poker. Former football player Rosie Greer took up needlepoint when he put down the pigskin. Yasser Arafat unwinds by watching cartoons. Kirsten, what is your favorite hobby, and what hobby would you like to try next?
I'm sorry. I just have to say, you all make this look really easy. I can't even give you 10 seconds without really screwing up. I played tenor saxophone when I was in an all-female big band, jazz band, back in Buffalo, New York, where I lived for over 20 years, raised my children.
I used to live there too.
Really? Wow. Yeah. So that's a hobby I wish I had more time for at this point, but I really do miss the performing aspect and playing all that wonderful old music. Didn't say I, just made a sound. What hobby would I like to pursue? Oh wow, that's hard to choose. If I didn't have to sleep, I had a lot of time. There is one goal I have, and I'd always like to try rock climbing. Maybe on one of those walls, maybe not on an actual mountain wall, but that always sort of intrigued me because I loved to climb trees as a kid. So I'd like to try that sometime before I turn 50. Thank you.
I try it in my dreams all the time.
That's probably what's going to stay with me too.
All right, that's all for table topics. Now I'll introduce our general evaluator today to go into our evaluation portion of the meeting. Roseanne Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. And Kirsten, you did a great job, by the way. Not many people do table topics the first time they come in here. They barely want to speak at all, so that was great.
Thank you. Not my choice, may I add?
I think I would kind of, yeah, like Pat said, James kind of pushed her into that one. And now, I would like to hear from Claude Hartman. He is the evaluator for Teresa's speech. Claude Hartman, the distinctive Claude Hartman.
What I really want to see is those distinctive shoes that really good. Because they're a certain strut. Well, fellow Toastmasters, Madam General Evaluator, and our guest, what a treat to evaluate Teresa's Inspire Your Audience speech. I'll just give you kind of an overview because there were some things that she really got me excited about and hooked me at the end. Because your subject, talking about your visits and people you know, the art, these places you've been. I've never been there except a couple of times when I was incarcerated. Only for the night. And that was twice in my lifetime.
Sounds like a speech to me.
It is. But I just really valued that part of how you got out and you just took control of the space out here and took this story where I wondered where you really were going to go with inspiring your audience. Came in with that change. You weren't expecting us to follow in your footsteps, but to honor and inspire us to help others, encourage others, give them good words, see their value. And I think that is one of the things I like about Toastmasters too. Every meeting I go to, I can always find value in the meeting and the people that I meet. nice to have that kind of environment to go to. And I told my brother about Toastmasters. He's not interested personally, but I just said, the reason I go is because they're just really nice people. And I don't have to deal with any of the off jokes, language, and all that. So that was my wrap up of that. The one thing I think you may have done a little bit better was to give us a little bit of maybe what your experience was in your visits, just to get us a little more deeper into that process. But all in all, I thought it was tremendous, and your visual aids were outstanding. General evaluation.
Thank you, Claude. I want to know how I got to know about my strutting here a little later. And now, I would like to hear from James Sandin, who is giving us the evaluation for